you are talking about rebuilding the statewide voter registration database after the election.
Yes, because we want to get it right. It wasn't given to us in the kind of shape that it should have been in terms of being able to do different kinds of queries. And I think just to sort of backfill a little bit of your information here, I think I was mentioning that with all the different flags of the data, the county boards were getting very, very frequent messages, and they asked the Secretary of State to stop having these messages sent to them about mismatches that were being flagged out of the database and out of the matches between Bureau of Motor Vehicles and Social Security. So the Secretary of State cut off that function. And a board still, if they pull up a voter's name, they can see whether it's flagged or not flagged, and they can go into the reasons for why it is. But what the Ohio Republican Party wanted to do, and they made it very clear in their proposed order that they gave to Judge Smith, is they wanted to be able to go in and take this group of just these voters from January 1 on, they didn't care about anyone before, target whose data didn't match, and get it in time that they could actually file challenges by October 15th. They originally wanted the data by October 12th. And when they also, as a fallback, said they also wanted to be able to push these folks into provisional voting. So to me, to take the way the database is constructed and the way that we have inherited it, and we have been attempting to work with it, we even were one of 5 states awarded $2 million per state to improve our election night reporting, and in that process we made it a priority that we would use some of that the funding to actually work with the 3 vendors that work with the county databases to improve the quality of our database. But it's the way that I can analogize this is, if you can imagine building a freeway through a rural area or building a freeway through an urban area. You know which takes longer. You've got more things you've got to unsort and untangle when you're going through an urban area. And essentially, what we've been trying to do without scrapping the database has been to try to bolster it, tweak it, fix it, work with the boards of elections, work with the vendors, because generally where we are with this database is that we will tell the boards, you have too many duplicates, because we know because this county sent this information and you should have taken this person off the roll. And the boards will blame the vendors, and the vendors will blame the boards. So we've made Herculean efforts to hold special meetings with the vendors, with the boards of elections, to bring them together. We have a database coordinator who we hired last year, whose sole function is just to work with this database. But when you're talking about records in excess of 8 million, this wasn't constructed in a way that specifically meets the requirements of the law. Clearly, you've got the difficulties of shifting large blocks of data and programming around in order to make this work. The comments of one of that we're aware of one of the original contractors who worked on this was essentially the conclusion that most likely to do this kind of sort of targeted search, it's probably going to take a reconstruction of the database.
You came into office critical of the last Secretary of State, where you said being too partisan. You promised to be more nonpartisan or bipartisan. Can you point in this past year to any major ruling or policy that you put out where your own party, the Democrats, have been critical of it, and the opposition party, the Republicans, have cheered your decision? I'm not talking about it as something you might have done being prodded by a court, or something that you've done on your own, where it's clearly you actually, ruled the opposite way, as people might expect.
There have been a number of tie votes that have been broken at boards of elections where, especially on tie votes on directors and deputy directors, where in several cases, Licking County, Trumbull County, I voted with the Republicans to keep the Republican as the director of the Board of Elections. In Cuyahoga County, I asked all 4 board members to resign, Democrats, Republicans alike, and I did not discuss it with any person holding public office, only my staff before I made that move. And clearly, my first the first response I received from the chair of the Democratic Party in Cuyahoga County was, would have been nice if you would have told me you were doing this. There have been situations where a court, 2 Supreme Court cases where clearly the criticism has been that my decision, which was overturned, was motivated by partisanship. I know that it looked that way when I made the decision at the time, but in reality it was really a decision based squarely on the law. And if I were to sort of bend the law as the Republican Party wanted me to, for instance, to say it's okay if you are not clear about stating that you're an eligible voter, or it's okay to make up the rules when there's no rules at all about observers for early voting, and the time has passed for an 11-day pre-early voting deadline like there is for Election Day for observers to file. Clearly, I knew that I would take some hits for that, but I felt that it was better to follow the law, and if the Supreme Court, which has the kind of discretion that someone in the executive branch doesn't have when it comes to administering statutes, wants to say that we can bend it and there's some room to move here, I felt better and felt that I was being more objective if the court were to make that decision rather than myself.
Madam Secretary, just to follow on the database issue for a moment, we know that some of the local boards have expressed their concern that without this broad ability to match multiple voters